How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation, and I'm moving my camera around the house to find a new filming location because after 500 videos, I think I'm on PSReady 575, I'm just getting a little sick of being trapped in my basement. So bear with me as I find a great new filming location. And so this is my wall where I have a bunch of paintings. I've got the Sharon Tate murder news article right here. We've got a map of Salem, Massachusetts right here. We've got an actual set photo from Halloween that was printed from the actual film, from actually filming the first movie in the 70s. We got a drawing from John Lennon. We got the John Carpenter poster back there. It's a pretty cool wall, so I think it's going to make a good backdrop. In today's video, I've got 3 topics to cover, starting out with a brand new DualSense that's been revealed, and it looks like it's coming along with that hardware revised PS5 Pro. I hope they release it because the feature it has with it is excellent. After that, let's talk about how Michael Pachter is back to call Sony a terrible company, and I'm just going to rip that one to shreds because it's stupid. And finally, after like a 20-year wait or more, Tokyo Extreme Racer is coming back to the PlayStation platform. I have a lot of hours in this game because it launched on PC first, so I'm going to tell you why you should add it to your wish list. So let's jump into the first news story here. We all know, because I've covered it in the last 2 videos, that Sony has been on a tear when it comes to revising their PlayStation hardware. I mean, for the entire generation, they've done multiple hardware revisions, and basically all of them just reduce the size and weight of the motherboard and the cooling to make the thing cheaper to produce, ship, get into stores, and then when they raise the price, they also increase the profit margin. I mean, nothing's really changed there. They've always done that. It's not this big news story that everyone is always making it out to be like a huge disaster. It's just how the business of gaming works. The big difference, of course, is that they keep raising the price. That is the key problem, that they keep raising the price of the PlayStation 5. So it was interesting this week when it was also revealed that the PS5 Pro is getting a revision, and I just did a video where I was like, I don't know what they could be doing outside of just making it lighter and cheaper to produce so they can make more money on it right after raising the price. And now it turns out it's coming along with the DualSense V3. And I gotta be real, the upgrade that comes along with this DualSense V3 is one of the coolest and best ones I've seen this generation because it's bringing along a swappable battery for the PlayStation controller. I mean, it needs it. Let's be real here. The DualSense has a lot of great features like haptic feedback, adaptive trigger support, the touchpad, the neon light that's on the front of it, or around the actual touchpad. It was on the front of the DualShock 4. The point is, those suck battery life, and if you're using the DualSense Edge, the battery life is just absolutely horrific. I use the DualSense Edge as my main controller. I use one that's less than a year old, and it lasts 90 minutes at most. I basically play with it plugged in all the time, and they knew it was going to have bad battery life because they include a 9-foot USB cable with it that doesn't even have a USB-C at the other end, so you have to use the USB-A port, which sucks. It is kind of interesting to see them kind of just throw in the towel though and add in a removable battery, because Xbox has been getting criticized for the AA batteries in the Xbox controllers since the very beginning, since the Xbox 360 when they introduced AA batteries. And I see the utility, right? Like, it's a lot quicker to just swap out the batteries if your controller dies. Of course, they can also sell an extra accessory that's a rechargeable battery and make a little bit more profit margin off of that, so you can recharge it like you would a DualSense controller. But AA batteries is not the solution. Honestly, I think it's kind of dumb because, you know, they cost money, right? Like, unless you buy the add-on accessory of the rechargeable battery, or you buy 500 AA batteries that you just keep in a drawer, or you buy rechargeable AA batteries at Costco, either way, there's an extra cost on top of owning the machine, on top of paying for online services and everything else, including the games. So like, it's a needless accessory that costs money for no reason. So that kind of bugs me about the Xbox controller. But when it comes to the DualSense, you're going to buy the PS5 Pro. It's going to come with this controller. Hopefully you're going to be able to buy the controller separately, but either way, it comes with the battery already in the controller. So you don't got to worry about buying an extra battery. I probably will if I pick one of these up, just so I can always have one ready, because SteelSeries does this. Like, my SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pro headphones came with an audio receiver, and one of the best features is it comes with an extra battery. So you charge it with the audio receiver, and then when a battery dies, you just pop off the side of the headphone, you put a new battery in, you pop the other one into the charger. You literally never run out of battery. So having 2 rechargeable batteries is excellent. The weirdest thing about this though is that they're calling it the DualSense V3 in all the news articles, because as far as I'm aware, the DualSense V2 never came out. It actually had a product listing either at the beginning of this year or the beginning of last year on Best Buy Canada, where it was was called the DualSense V2, and it said it was going to have extended battery life. Like, there was a real legitimate listing for it, and it just never was announced and never released. So I don't know what happened there, but if they never released or announced the DualSense V2, you shouldn't be calling this new one the DualSense V3. It's the DualSense V2 at most, because they never released the DualSense V2, and I don't get why we're calling it the DualSense V3. The obvious PR disaster that they can easily avoid here is to not make this exclusive to the PlayStation 5 Pro. It's insult to injury at that point after you raise the price to $750. It's just ridiculous to make that exclusive to a new revision of the PS5 Pro, because not only are you punishing regular PS5 owners, you're also punishing people who bought in early on the Pro, and with the support that they've had with the PS5 Pro in terms of games and performance, they should be on their hands and knees, begging us not to take them to task for the PS5 Pro's lack of support, because outside of a very limited list of games, every Unreal Engine 5 game has had major problems on the PS5 Pro specifically, to the point where you get a more consistent experience out of the cheaper regular PS5, which is just unacceptable. So hopefully they start selling this thing, and hopefully it doesn't cost more money. I'm just really curious why they waited so long for this. Like, obviously there's R&D costs that come with redesigning the controller, but they've clearly been iterating on the DualSense as the years have gone on to try and increase the battery life, which is why we saw that DualSense V2 listing. And I think they kind of hit the sweet spot here by giving it a removable battery. It's not the biggest change in the world, but in terms of quality of life, it is a pretty major change. And if that's the only thing that there's changing with the PS5 Pro outside of making it slimmer and lighter, I think that's fine. As long as they can figure out how to drop the prices of these things within a reasonable time frame, they're doing everything right in my book. But now I'm just waiting for Austin to get his hands on this revised PS5 Pro to figure out what exactly they did, because he has the monopoly on doing that with every PS5. I don't know why he's so addicted to buying them, but it's just a fact at this point. He's addicted to buying every PS5 that comes out, and he might need some treatment for that. I don't know. But sticking with Sony's business, let's move on to the second news story here, because Michael Pachter is back in the news. I have been doing news for gaming for a very long time. I started a blog, I wrote for IGN, I started this YouTube channel, and Michael Pachter has been an ever-present force within my gaming news life, because he just says the craziest stuff, and now he's back calling Sony quote-unquote a terrible company. So I immediately clicked on the Push Square article to see where the hell he was coming from with this, because I disagree. I mean, they're criticizable for sure with some of the moves they made this generation. I just did it in the last news story, but to call them a terrible company, I think is a huge stretch when you look at what Nintendo is doing, when you look at what Xbox is doing. The only company that's really doing everything right, in my opinion, in gaming right now is Valve. They're just like ever presently doing the right thing. And even they have had weird controversies like banning games from Steam because some aggrieved women in Australia came after them. So no one's perfect. So to single out Sony and call them a terrible company doesn't make sense. And when you look into it, I'm right. It doesn't make sense. So basically what he was talking about is how gaming, in his opinion, is moving to direct to TV. So like when you turn on your TV, it'll have an Apple TV style layout. You'll be able to just play Xbox, PS5, Nintendo games right from your TV. You'll connect a controller to it. You'll use cloud streaming and AI. And he's criticizing Sony for not investing heavily in that. And what makes that ironic is that's exactly what I think Sony is doing right. I mean, if you try any cloud service outside of GeForce Now from Nvidia, it's a complete disaster. Xbox cloud streaming is garbage. Sony's PlayStation Now service that they've worked on since the very beginning, because if you remember way back to OnLive, which was a thing when I was a kid, other than them, Sony was the very first console manufacturer to invest in cloud gaming. They bought a cloud gaming streaming service before anyone even knew what that was. So like they have invested in it, but outside of that, every service is just not great. So to criticize Sony for spending their money where it matters and not just blowing endless amounts of money on getting cloud streaming up and running, it really just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And to call them a terrible company for it, it's just rage bait. And if I'm being real, it's kind of working. I don't want to sit here and pretend that Sony's perfect, right? Like for the first half of this generation, they had a lot of trouble keeping the PS5 in stock and out of scalpers' hands. That was a disaster. After that, they got criticized heavily for, you know, the insane amount of remakes that we got from studios like Naughty Dog and everyone else. They got criticized for repackaging PS5 patches for PS4 games and shipping new versions of the games with very light DLC. They got criticized for all the cross-generational games. They've been been heavily criticized for raising the price of the PS5 multiple times all over the world. But in terms of cloud gaming, the less money they spend on cloud gaming, the happier I am. I think they found the perfect sweet spot with remote play in the PS Portal, connecting directly to your console over your home Wi-Fi network or even outside of your house and playing the games directly from your console and not the cloud is the way to go, because the experience in cloud gaming is 1,000,000,000% determined by how close you are to a data center. Microsoft has learned this the hard way repeatedly, where the only way to get a decent cloud gaming experience is to be close to an AI or computer data center. So if you're in Washington, where Microsoft is based, you're probably going to have a great experience cloud gaming. If you're in Los Angeles, where I used to live, you're probably going to have a pretty decent cloud gaming experience. But if you're in Detroit, where I live now, I would hazard a guess that you're going to have a subpar at best cloud gaming experience, because as far as I'm aware, there's no massive Microsoft data center within like 500 miles of me that could stream games from an Xbox server rack sitting in a big computer shelf in this data center. So like, yeah, they could invest billions of dollars into building data centers all over the country, or they could continue to reinvest in the console that's working, that can directly play your games. And if you want to stream games to a handheld, they also give you that ability. So even from the metric that he's judging Sony on, he's just flat out wrong. It's crazy. I don't think any corporation is beyond criticism, especially in the world of gaming where all they do is nickel and dime us at every possible opportunity. But if you're going to go as far as to call a company completely terrible, especially when there are so many big corporations out there in the world of gaming that deserve much more criticism of Sony, you're just coming off as a hater, man, and you always have, and you probably always will. And speaking of great games that'll run great on the PlayStation 5, let's talk about Tokyo Extreme Racer. So I played this game as a kid. I forget which one it was on PSP that I had, because if you look at the titles of Tokyo Extreme Racer games, they're basically incomprehensible, but it's one of the most addictive PSP games I had back in the day, and I don't know a lot of people who played them. So it went away for around 20 years on the PlayStation platform, and then earlier this year, the original company who was making Tokyo Extreme Racer, Genki, came back with an early access version out of nowhere on Steam. I downloaded it and I was absolutely hooked. In terms of early access releases, there aren't many of them on PS5. The biggest one I can think of is Path of Exile 2. I'd say Path of Exile 2 was in worse shape when it came out than Tokyo Extreme Racer. Like, they did an incredible job with the early access release, creating a game that honestly felt like it could have been released in the early access state, because technically speaking, content-wise and everything else, it was fully featured from top to bottom, and it had one of the shortest turnarounds in early access history, because the 1.0 version just came out and I'm still just as addicted to it as I was back in January when it first released. The interesting thing about it is that they prioritized PC first, but with the 1.0 release of the game, they announced it exclusively on console for PlayStation 5, not Nintendo Switch or Xbox. And I'm not sure why that is, but maybe it's because they want to maximize nostalgia and get people who played Tokyo Extreme Racer back on the PSP and PS2 and even PS3 like I did to play it on their PlayStation 5 consoles, which makes a lot of sense. My favorite thing about this game is that despite the fact it's Unreal Engine 5, you cannot tell because it runs incredibly. I play it on Steam Deck the most of all, and it runs at medium settings, which is higher than the PlayStation 5 generally uses. It's like if you use quality mode, you're getting a mix of medium and low with a few high settings thrown in the mix. And on the PS5 Pro, it's the same, just with the higher resolution and higher frame rate. So if it's running that well at medium settings on the Steam Deck, I would imagine that it's going to use a mix of the high and ultra settings from PC on PS5, which means it's going to look pretty good. As far as the car selection goes, there's nothing American or European. It's 100% Japanese cars. There are some really cool ones in there. There's a lot of deep cut JDM lore cars in there. There's even the FJ Cruiser, the newest Land Cruiser before they made the electric one, that is kind of like a sleeper fan favorite car that Toyota's ever made. I'm using the starter car still. I'm still competitive, but I'm building up to the Nissan GTR because that's just like the coolest car in the entire game. But yeah, as far as the release date goes, there's nothing announced yet. I would assume it won't take long to actually port this game over though, mainly because they released it in early access in January. They had it shipped by October of 2025 within the same year. It seems like whatever they've done over at Genki, they have a mastery of the Unreal Engine 5 engine. And because the game is already done, it shouldn't take too long to port it over to PlayStation 5. So add it to your wish list now. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you in today's video. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching and shape on.